I had already dropped $12,400 into my parents' backyard remodel when the truth hit me like a slap in the face. My aunt called, all casual at first, like she just wanted to chat. Then, mid-sentence, she slipped in the knife. "Oh, by the way, the party's just immediate family. Hope you understand." Immediate family. But apparently, not me. I sat there stunned, phone still warm in my hand. Did I mishear that? I texted my dad right away. His response? Just 3 words, "Don't be dramatic." And that's when something inside me broke. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even text back. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into the renovation account, and started pulling levers. Cancelled every single contractor payment. Froze the landscaping funds. Blocked future transactions. If they thought I was just going to bankroll a space I wasn't even allowed to enjoy, they had picked the wrong son. By the next morning, my phone looked like it had been through a hurricane. 49 missed calls. And just after noon, the pounding started, hard enough to rattle the hinges. I stayed quiet at first, until I heard her voice. "Open the door. I know you're in there." It was my mom. Shouting my name like I'd committed some crime. I finally opened up, and the sight of her stopped me cold. Hair wild, mascara smeared, clutching her phone like it was a weapon. She didn't even wait for me to say anything, just shoved her way inside, claiming the space like she still owned me. "You embarrassed your father," she spat, eyes burning. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't funny, but the absurdity of it all hit me. I had dropped thousands into their dream backyard, and she was mad I embarrassed him? So I told her flat out, "I'm not paying for a backyard to host a party I'm not even invited to." She snapped back instantly. "This isn't about a party, it's about family. You're being selfish." Selfish. Me. The reliable son who always showed up, paid up, shut up. So I asked her the question she didn't want to hear, then why am I not considered immediate family? Her eyes flickered. She deflected. Talked in circles. Then the threats started. Not subtle either, she leaned in close and hissed, "You'll regret this. You don't turn your back on blood." And just like that, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I thought maybe that was the end of it. Maybe they'd sulk, lick their wounds, and move on. But I had no idea just how far they were willing to go next. The silence that followed my mom's meltdown was eerie. 2 whole days. Not a single call. Not even one of those half-baked guilt texts my dad usually sends when he thinks I've overreacted. For a moment, I almost convinced myself maybe they finally got it. Maybe they realized I wasn't their personal ATM anymore. Then Friday came. I was working from home, mid-Zoom call, trying to focus on some reports when I heard the sound outside. At first, it was low, dull, like thunder rolling far off. I almost brushed it off. But then came a sharper sound, metal clashing against metal, and my stomach dropped. I muted my mic, pushed back my chair, and before I even reached the window, the crash came. Glass shattering. My heart slammed in my chest. I pulled the curtain aside, and what I saw didn't even look real. My mom. In my driveway. In broad daylight. Standing there with a landscaping brick, one of the same bricks I had paid for. She was screaming, her face twisted, veins in her neck popping, and then, she hurled that brick like she was pitching for the Yankees. Straight into my car's windshield. The glass spiderwebbed instantly, shards scattering across the dash. Behind her, my dad just stood there. Arms crossed. Silent. Watching. Like it was a show. I thought I was hallucinating. Before I could even get to the door, she grabbed a thick branch from my own yard and went at my car like it had personally insulted her. First the side mirror, gone. Then the hood, dented with every vicious swing. I was yelling at her, my voice cracking from shock, but she didn't even pause. She just screamed back, ranting about betrayal, about how I disrespected her house, about how I thought I was better than everyone now. She actually said those words as she destroyed my car, each swing punctuating her anger. And the wildest part? I couldn't even move to stop her. I was too stunned. Too broken in that moment to believe it was real. Finally, my dad stepped in. Not to apologize. Not to look me in the eye. He just grabbed her wrist mid-swing, like he was pulling her away from a petty argument at the dinner table. Then they turned around, walked calmly to their car, and drove off. Like smashing my property was just another errand. I stood frozen in my yard, glass crunching under my shoes, staring at the wreckage. My windshield was obliterated. The mirror dangled by a wire. The hood caved in like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. Shards and bark scattered everywhere. I called the police right then and there. Filed a report, showed them the doorbell cam footage. One of the officers shook his head and muttered, "You're pressing charges, right?" Damn right I was. That night, I called a lawyer. I laid out everything, the $12,400 for their remodel, the calls, the threats, the so-called immediate family party, and now, this circus. He didn't hesitate for a second. "We're filing a restraining order first thing Monday. Then we go after them for destruction of property, emotional distress, and full reimbursement plus legal fees. You've got one hell of a case." I hung up, sat alone in the dark, and replayed the scene over and over in my mind. My own mother, standing in my driveway, screaming like a banshee, throwing bricks at my car. My dad, my father, just standing there, arms crossed, letting it happen. That wasn't a fight. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a line crossed so far, it was gone forever. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A single text from my dad, "We should talk this out like adults." I stared at it. My hands didn't even twitch toward the keyboard. He had stood there. Watched. Let her rip into my car, into my life. No, words weren't going to cut it anymore. And my mom? I didn't block her. I wanted her to sit in that silence. To feel it creeping in. To realize this wasn't some tantrum. This wasn't a phase. She had no idea what was coming next. Monday morning, I sat in a chair that squeaked every time I shifted, across from my lawyer in an office that smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. The kind of smell that clings to the walls. I slid a flash drive across his desk with all the doorbell footage. Then a folder with printed screenshots of my parents' texts, and finally, the police report. He didn't even blink. Just opened his laptop and said calmly, "This is going to be very straightforward." Then his fingers started flying across the keyboard. First order of business, a restraining order against my mom. Family or not, what she'd done wasn't just out of line, it was criminal. The footage was clear as day, her storming up my driveway, brick in hand, screaming, smashing my windshield, then tearing into my car with a branch like she was in some twisted demolition derby. And the part that still made my stomach twist? My dad. Standing right behind her. Hands shoved in his pockets. Watching like it was nothing. Next came the lawsuit. Damages to my car, $3,100, confirmed by 2 separate body shops. We included the $12,400 I'd already sunk into their half-finished backyard project. But I wasn't about to stop there. My lawyer and I added $10,000 for emotional distress and harassment. Another $6,000 for legal fees. He even considered throwing in punitive damages, but we agreed to hold that card for later. When he tallied it all up, the total was $31,500. He paused, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "This isn't about the money anymore, is it?" He was right. It wasn't. It was about principle. About finally telling them, "I'm not your safety net anymore." By Thursday, the papers were served. And the chaos rolled in exactly like I knew it would. My phone lit up within an hour. 5 missed calls from my dad in 10 minutes. Then a string of long, frantic voicemails from my mom. I didn't even bother hitting play. But then the unknown numbers started showing up, one after another. I finally picked up one, thinking maybe it was official business. It was my cousin Mara. Her voice sharp, demanding, "What the hell is going on?" So I told her. The backyard, the immediate family party, the brick, the car, the lawsuit. Silence on the other end. Then, "Send me the video." I did. And not just to her. I sent it to 5 cousins I was closest to, the ones who'd also been left out of that party. No commentary, no explanation. Just, "Thought you should see this." The reactions came fast. Mara texted back, "WTF. I can't believe Uncle Tom just stood there." Brandon, my cousin in Texas, shot me a message, "That woman's lost it. I'm with you, man. 100%. Even Cheryl, my mom's own older sister, called me. Her voice sounded exhausted. She admitted she'd worried about my mom for years, but figured it was just her being emotional. After watching the video, she said it was way beyond that. Dangerous, even. She told me flat out to keep my distance. Said she'd call the rest of the family herself and set the record straight. Only one person stayed quiet, my aunt. The same aunt who'd whispered in that fake sweet voice, "It's just immediate family." I hadn't forgotten. That little sentence had been the match that started this entire fire. Then came the kicker. My lawyer forwarded me a letter from my mom's attorney. Their idea of an amicable settlement was simple: I drop the restraining order, dismiss the lawsuit, and everyone moves on. No damages. No repayment. Nothing. Just sweep it under the rug. They thought I'd cave. That I'd fold under pressure like I always used to. I told my lawyer to reject it. No deals. No compromise. Let's take it all the way to court. That night, my dad sent me another text, "We should talk this out like adults." I stared at it. This from the same man who stood silent while my mom smashed my car to pieces. The same man who didn't check on me afterward, didn't reach out until legal papers landed on his porch. Adults? Please. I didn't respond. The silence itself felt like power. After years of being talked over, manipulated, guilt-tripped, I realized silence was the one thing they couldn't twist against me. My mom could scream. My dad could beg. My aunt could play innocent. But I wasn't moving an inch. The old Alex, the one who would have called everyone, tried to smooth things over, sacrificed his own peace just to keep the family together, he was gone. It had been nearly a week since the lawsuit was filed. And for the first time in months, the quiet wasn't threatening. It felt like peace. No phone calls. No pounding on the door. No chaos bleeding into my life. That night, I slept. Really slept. For the first time in what felt like forever. Then came Saturday. I'd just pulled into my driveway after a quick grocery run. The sun was sharp overhead, my arms heavy with 2 bags of frozen food. I shut the car door, and that's when I noticed another vehicle slowing down across the street. My father behind the wheel. My mother riding shotgun. I froze. She was out of the car before I even had time to breathe. No words. No warning. She walked across the street like she owned it, reached into a canvas bag, and pulled out, God help me, another landscaping brick. The exact kind from their precious backyard remodel. She wound up and launched it with everything she had. The brick slammed into my rear windshield. The glass cracked straight through, a jagged spiderweb crawling across the pane. My grocery bags hit the ground, ice cream melting into the pavement, and I bolted back inside. Slammed the door. Locked it. My hands shook as I dialed 911. While the dispatcher was talking, I peeked through the blinds. And what I saw nearly made me drop the phone. My dad. Calm as ever. Out of the car now, holding something long, maybe a broom handle, maybe a shovel shaft. Didn't matter. He walked over and swung it at my driver's side door. Once. Twice. The hollow thud echoed in my bones. Then my mom joined in again, picking up another brick. This wasn't just a tantrum anymore. This was full-blown destruction. 7 minutes. That's how long it took for the police to arrive. But 7 minutes is a lifetime when it's your parents dismantling your car in your driveway. By the time the cruisers rolled up, my mom was mid-swing with a second brick, my dad standing proud over 2 dented side doors. The officers shouted, rushed in, separated them, cuffed them both right there in front of the whole neighborhood. And of course, the neighbors were out by then. Phones raised. Kids across the street filming like it was some viral skit. My car wasn't just damaged, it was undrivable. My back window destroyed, both sides beaten in. When one of the officers looked from the wreck to me, he muttered, "This kind of behavior doesn't just come out of nowhere." I wanted to laugh. Or cry. Instead, I just told him, actually, it did. That night, I called my lawyer. His reaction? Pure shock. He said this gave us grounds for criminal charges on top of the civil suit. His advice was clear: document everything. Every voicemail, every receipt, every second of footage. The next morning, the restraining order was expedited. My parents were officially served while still sitting in holding. Hours later, my phone lit up with 2 voicemails from my mother, both of them unhinged. Screaming. Calling me a traitor. Telling me I'd ruined her life. I didn't listen twice. I forwarded them straight to my lawyer. Then I made another decision. I told him I wanted the court to request a psychological evaluation, not for me, for her. Because it wasn't just about money anymore. I needed something official on record. Something that would keep me safe if she ever came near me again. After that, I cut off all contact with her completely. Weeks went by. The only messages I got were through my father, and even those were flimsy attempts to smooth things over. His favorite line? She didn't mean it. We were just overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? She hurled bricks at my car, twice. She showed up at my house with a weapon and went to war with my property. That's not overwhelmed. That's dangerous. And the worst part? She wasn't sorry. Not even close. Word spread fast through the family. Almost everyone took my side after the second incident. A few whispered that I should show mercy, but most were just horrified she'd crossed that line. Everyone spoke, except my aunt. The one who'd started this whole mess with her fake sweet phone call about immediate family only. She went radio silent. I knew she was hiding, waiting, watching from the sidelines. But silence doesn't last forever. And when she finally opened her mouth, I wasn't ready for what came out. 2 weeks after my parents were arrested in my driveway, the quiet returned, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that gives you peace. It felt heavier, like something was bubbling beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. No texts from my dad. No voicemails from my mom. Even the cousins who had been blowing up my phone with support went silent. That's when I found out why. My cousin Zach, the one cousin who never wavered, who had my back from day one, finally called. His voice carried that guilty edge, like he'd been holding something back. He admitted the family had been invited to a dinner at my aunt's house. That aunt. The one who first made the immediate family only call that started all of this. The one who had stayed suspiciously quiet ever since. According to Zach, halfway through the meal she stood up, clutching a manila folder like it was a smoking gun. She told the table she was going to clear the air once and for all. And then, she went on a rant. She claimed I had been manipulating everyone. That I'd been plotting a lawsuit against the family for months. That I had deliberately sabotaged the backyard project as part of some grand scheme. And then she pulled out her so-called proof. Photocopies of text messages, supposedly mine. Except they weren't. They were laughably fake. In them, I was bragging to some friend about how I hated my parents, how I was finally done playing the good son, how I was going to make them pay for everything. The timestamps didn't match up. The formatting was sloppy. Half the wording didn't even sound like me. Anyone with half a brain could see they were doctored. But here's the thing, people don't always want the truth. Sometimes they want something that justifies their version of events. And some of my family wanted to believe her. Zach secretly snapped a picture of one of the pages and sent it to me later that night. I sat on my couch staring at it, my blood running cold. Who even does this? Who fabricates fake texts just to destroy someone's credibility? And then it clicked. This wasn't just about defending my mom anymore. This was about my aunt protecting herself. Because here's the part one hadn't told anyone yet. For 2 semesters, I'd been quietly paying for her daughter's college books. Her husband had lost his job, and I didn't want my cousin falling behind, so I covered it. I never bragged about it, never asked for recognition. But the payments had gone through the same account I used for the backyard remodel. And my aunt knew. She knew if I cut that off, or worse, if I told the rest of the family what I'd been doing, the whole family glue image she worked so hard to project would shatter. So she went on the offensive. She rewrote the story before I could tell it. And shockingly, people bought it. A few cousins messaged me privately, hesitating, asking things like, "Did you really say you hated your parents?" That's when I snapped. I was done playing defense. I gathered the receipts. The real texts. The call logs. The police reports. Photos of the car damage estimates. I blurred names, didn't point fingers directly, just laid out the raw facts. And then I added the kicker, bank statements showing the tuition payments I'd made for her daughter. Her name, right there on the ledger. Crystal clear. The post didn't blow up, but it didn't have to. It spread through my family like wildfire. Within hours, I was getting messages, apologies, shock, cousins admitting they believed her until they saw the proof. Mara told me my aunt's daughter left the family group chat the moment my post went live. That stung, but I understood. What I didn't expect came 3 days later. A letter in the mail. No return address. handwritten. Inside was a single line, "You think you've won, but you've just declared war on the wrong person." No signature. But tucked inside the envelope was a photo. A photo of me, standing in my own front yard, holding a bag of takeout. Mid-step. The angle was low, grainy, taken from across the street. From inside a car. My chest tightened as I stared at it. My first thought was when? But the longer I looked, the more I realized it didn't matter. What mattered was someone had been watching me. I handed it all over to my lawyer, the letter, the photo, the envelope. He studied it quietly, then told me this was no longer just civil. He forwarded it to the police, then leaned in and suggested something simple but chilling: "You need more cameras. Not just a doorbell. Full coverage." And so I did. Because if this was war, I needed to be ready for whatever came next. The court granted it, a permanent restraining order against my mom. My dad wasn't included, but honestly, he didn't need to be. He hadn't set foot near me since the brick incident, and not because of remorse. No, I think he stayed away because he couldn't stomach the fallout of what his wife and sister had unleashed. The lawsuit moved faster than I expected. With the mountain of evidence stacked against her, the judge didn't hesitate. My mother was ordered to pay full damages. The emotional distress amount got trimmed down, but even then, the total came to more than $25,000. She appealed. She lost. I didn't even bother showing up for the final hearing. My lawyer handled everything while I stayed home. I hadn't spoken a single word to my mother since the day she was cuffed in my driveway. Not one. With my dad, I kept it short, purely transactional. Nothing more. Some cousins still reached out now and then, some trying to make sense of it all, others still choosing sides. But I didn't engage. I didn't need validation. I had finally stopped being convenient. And yes, everything burned because of it. But for the first time in my life, I felt free. Then, just when I thought it was over, the nightmare flared up again. It came in the form of a text from an unknown number. Just one sentence: "Look under your doormat." I almost laughed, thought it was a prank. But something in my gut told me to check. I opened the front door, lifted the mat, and there it was, a flash drive sealed in a Ziploc bag. No note. No explanation. I brought it inside, but not to my main computer. No way. I dug out an old spare laptop I barely used anymore, plugged it in, and waited. 3 files. Each one labeled with a recent date. I opened the first. Grainy video. Shaky. Someone hiding behind bushes. The view was of my living room window, dim light flickering inside. My house. My home. The second file. Me. In my driveway. Taking out the trash late at night. The angle made it clear, it wasn't a neighbor's casual glance. Someone was filming me. Then the third. That one froze my blood. My bedroom window. From the backyard. You could barely make out shapes through the curtain, but it was unmistakable. Someone had been there. Close enough to breathe the same air. Close enough to see inside. That's when the denial crumbled. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This wasn't just revenge or manipulation. This was something darker. Something worse. And someone was still watching me. It's been 2 months since I found that flash drive under my doormat. 2 months of looking over my shoulder. I've moved twice since then. The first time, I packed a bag in a single weekend, abandoned my house, and left without telling anyone except my lawyer and one friend I trust with my life. I installed a security system that could rival a government facility. Cameras, alarms, motion sensors, you name it. I thought that would be enough. But the paranoia didn't leave. Every shadow felt suspicious. Every car that lingered too long on my street made my skin crawl. I jumped every time the doorbell rang, triple-checked locks before bed. I hated living like that, so I moved again. This time, I chose a gated complex. Security on site 24/7. Cameras on every corner. A place where the walls felt high enough, strong enough, to finally put distance between me and all of it. And now? Now, I think. I hope, it's finally over. About 2 months ago, everything finally came to light. The police, chasing down a lead in a completely different harassment case, stumbled across a laptop. It belonged to some so-called freelance investigator. And tucked inside his files? Notes, payment records, and photos, my photos. The same 3 videos I'd found on that flash drive under my doormat. And the client? My aunt. She thought she was slick, paid in cash, used burner phones, never put her name directly on anything. But he kept records. He logged everything. And those records traced straight back to her. When confronted, she denied it all. Swore up and down she had nothing to do with it. But the paper trail didn't care about her lies. The police said it wasn't enough for criminal charges, but my lawyer? He didn't hesitate. We filed for a restraining order, this time against her. And it stuck. 500 feet. That's the distance she's legally required to keep from me and my property. She tried to contest it. She lost. A few weeks later, I got a letter, official, through her attorney. It was drenched in vague lawyer speak about misunderstandings and family tensions. Not a single line of real apology. Just a weak attempt to salvage her image in case I ever went public. I didn't bother responding. My mom's been silent ever since the judgment. I think the weight of losing financially crushed her more than she'll ever admit. My dad and I exchanged one last set of messages. I told him, honestly, that I wished things had been different, but I was done pretending we still had a relationship. He sent back just 2 words, I understand. And that was the end. Since then, I've started therapy. I'm sleeping through the night again. I don't jump at shadows or obsess over every parked car on the street. For the first time in a long time, I'm building a life that's mine. One that isn't wrapped around their chaos. And in case you're wondering, no, I never got a refund for those backyard renovations. But I don't regret canceling them. That half-finished disaster, weeds sprouting through cracked stone, is the perfect monument to what my parents and aunt tried to build on me. Something shiny, useful, convenient, for them. Paid for by me. Now it just sits there. A broken patio. A project abandoned halfway. Nothing completed, nothing real. Just like our relationship. So yeah, it's over. But I'll admit, sometimes, before bed, I still glance at the camera feeds. Not because I'm afraid, but because part of me knows, some things never stay buried forever.